Today we will read a story called Welcome to Santa's Toy Shop. In this story we will hear some of the vocabulary words that we learned last week, as well as we're going to learn our new vocabulary words. So, we're going to first go over our vocabulary words from last week. Delighted. Does anyone remember what delighted means? That's right, feeling or showing great pleasure or happiness. So, to be happy or to be excited. So, important. Can anyone remember what important means? That's right, of great value or liking. So, it was important last week in our story to follow the recipe for Thanksgiving dinner. Prepare. Very good. To make something or get ready. Like last week, we were preparing for Thanksgiving dinner in our story. Stuffed. Very good. To fill something tightly or until full. Last week we talked about the stuffed turkey. Imagine. To form a mental picture or image. Imagine. So last week in our story we talked about imagining how good Thanksgiving dinner was going to be in the book and how good it looked. And we had the pictures in the book to make us form our own mental image of how Thanksgiving goes at our house. Okay. Welcome to Santa's Toy Shop. It was nearly Christmas, and Santa and his elves were busy once again, for they had much to prepare if they were going to be ready to deliver all the presents to the good boys and girls all over the world on Christmas Eve. Prepare, one of our words from last week. That's right, to get ready or to prepare. Snow was falling outside, but in Santa's warm toy shop, the elves chiseled and hammered, painted and stuffed, stitched and sewed. They were so hard at work, and there was so much to do, that some of the elves wondered if they would finish in time. So, chiseled and hammered. Does anyone know what chiseled might mean in this sentence? The snow was falling outside, but in Santa's warm toy shop, the elves chiseled and hammered. Yes, chiseled means to cut or to chisel with the tool, a chisel, and to shape something. So in this picture we might see the plane. It could be made out of wood, or the boat, and they would have to chisel and hammer to get those ready. And stuffed, painted and stuffed. So they probably painted the wood things and stuffed like the stuffed animals here. But Santa was in no doubt. Come on, everybody. We're nearly there, I promise, he encouraged. Encouraged. Does anybody know what encouraged means? Very good. Encouraged means to give support or hope. We talk about encouragement in the class, to encourage our other friends to do well on their work and stuff. Sure enough, just in time, everything seemed to be ready, and the elves piled all the gifts up for inspection. Santa looked everything over, checking the toys against his list. Boys and girls all over the world had sent letters, and he was going to make sure that every good child's stocking would be filled with something they would really enjoy. Imagine such a list, but for Santa, this was no problem. Imagine was one of our words last week, and it was to what? That's right, to form a mental image or picture. Here we can see how long the list is. And it says, imagine such a list, but for Santa, this was no problem. So we can imagine how long, for all the boys and girls all over the world, how long this list would have to be. Soon the toys were wrapped and ready to be loaded into the sacks to go on Santa's sleigh. But first, Santa treated his hard-working elves to tea and cakes. There was even a big chocolate log for them to feast on. A big chocolate log. Can anyone find the log in the picture that they're talking about? The chocolate log? That's right, it's right here. Now, when we think about a log, we think about a cut piece of wood that we put in our fireplace, maybe. Here, they're just talking about a chocolate log because it's kind of the shape of a log that we're talking about. The elves couldn't rest for too long. However, there was still so much to be done before Santa could set off his long journey on Christmas Eve. Does anybody know what a journey is? It says that he could set off on his long journey on Christmas Eve. Well, we all know that Santa goes all around the world to deliver the boys and girls presents on Christmas Eve. So, does anybody have any guesses on what journey would mean? Very good. Journey is the act of traveling from one place to another. Time passed quickly, and it was soon time for Santa to dress himself for the long night ahead. It would be very cold in his sleigh, so it was important to wrap up extra warm. Important was something we talked about last week. Remember we talked about how important it was to follow the recipes? So it was extra important, and it was, it was important for him to wrap up and be warm. Woolen socks, heavy boots, thick coat, and red bobble hat. Of course, Santa's outfit was complete. Woolen. Does anybody know what woolen means? Woolen socks. Right, woolen socks. Wool is something that it's a material that we use to make stuff. So woolen means that the socks were made of wool. As Santa dressed, the elves busied themselves, carrying sack after sack of gifts to load up the sleigh for the long night ahead. Soon it was time for Santa to be on his way. The sleigh had been readied with Santa's most trusted reindeer harnessed to the front. Harnessed. Does anybody know what that means? It says, with Santa's most trusted reindeer harnessed to the front. In the picture, we can see that he has this green thing on, and then these green things going back, and so that's the only way he's connected to the sleigh. And harnessed means that it's to put a harness, which is the green thing, on an animal, such as a horse. In this case, it's the reindeer. Now Santa waved goodbye and took the sky with a flash of the rains. Reins. Does anybody know what reins means? Very good. Reins are the green things that he's holding on to that are connected to the harness. It's what gives control to the person that is controlling the animal. He had a very busy night ahead of him, as there were many stockings to fill. Come Christmas Day, however, there would be so many delighted boys and girls as they opened their presents, and that always made Santa smile. Delighted. Delighted was one of our words from last week. Does anybody remember what delighted means? Very good. Delighted means to be happy or joyous. Okay, so our words from this week were reins, the part of the harness for the person to hold to control the animal, encouraged, to give support or hope, chiseled, to cut or shape something with a tool called a chisel. Remember, they were chiseling on the toys to make the boat or the plane. Log, a part of a branch, a large branch or a tree trunk. Harnessed was to put a harness, the green thing, remember on the reindeer, on a horse or another animal. Woolen, made of wool, like his woolen socks. And journey, the act of traveling from one place to another. For my objective, the teacher will determine or clarify the meaning of unknown and multiple meaning words and phrases based on the first grade reading content, choosing flexibly from an array of strategies. The teacher will do this by using sentence-level context as a clue to the meaning of the word or phrase, as we did in our story. For the review, the teacher would go over the vocabulary words from the last week so that the students still remembered the meanings and definitions. The purpose or importance, the learner will be able to identify the vocabulary words and give the meaning of them. The learner will also be able to use the vocabulary words in their own sentences. Last week, we learned the definitions of the vocabulary words prepare, stuffed, imagine, important, and delighted. Today, we will focus on the new words from our story, Welcome to Santa's Toy Shop. In the future, we will review the vocabulary words we have learned and use them in sentences of our own for a grade. The objective, the student will be able to understand the vocabulary words and the meaning. For the motivation was reading the story, Welcome to Santa's Toy Shop. For the procedures, we read the story. We identified the meaning of the vocabulary words. The teacher will then go over the vocabulary words on flashcards. Then the students will be given a worksheet to complete where they will fill in the blanks for vocabulary sentences using their new vocabulary words. So on this one it says the cowboy blank the horse, where they would put in harnessed. And then they would go all the way through. So when I ran the race, my mom blanked me to do my best. And it would be encouraged me. After they completed this worksheet, for closure, the students will go over the worksheet in class so that the students will be able to study them for the test. Homework, the students will complete vocabulary definitions where they will match the word to the definition. So they would find chiseled over here, and then they would find to cut or shape something with a tool called a chisel. So they would put F in this blank, and then for encouraged, they would go over here to find the definition, and it would be to give support or hope, so they put the letter C over here. For early finishers, they will be allowed to start on their homework early, so they'll be able to complete the vocabulary definitions page early if they had time. For special needs students, the students with learning disabilities will be able to use their accommodations on their IEP and work with their paraprofessional if allowed or needed. Remediation, for students that need further help with the matching of vocabulary words or their definition, the students will be given time with the student teacher or paraprofessional at the review table. For the enrichment, the students will be given a plain sheet of paper to draw their own picture of a toy that they would like to get for Christmas. It can be a toy that they are hoping to get, or it could be a toy that they can come up with for their own imagination. And that would conclude my lesson.